Hi there, I'm Justin Pritchard for Autotrader.ca, and in this video you're along for the ride with me in the all-new, all-electric Jaguar I-PACE for a bit of a wintertime road trip and range test. It's getting cold out and we've got some driving to do, so let's go. And here it is, the I-PACE Electric Vehicle, or EV. It's all electric and you couldn't put gas in this thing if you wanted to. Also, it's recently been called Ajax Utility Vehicle of the Year despite being the only electric vehicle in contention, and it's Jaguar's first EV, and a swanky, leather-lined taste of things to come. My full video review of this machine is linked in the description below, but for this video, it's all about getting it home to Sudbury, where I live, via a 400-kilometer drive due north, all highway from Mississauga, where this tester lives. And the I-PACE is rated for 377 kilometers of driving on a full battery, and there are some charging stations along the route, but not so fast, because that 377 kilometer range is in ideal conditions. Batteries don't like being cold, so the weather meant that I started with a 300 kilometer range on a full charge instead, and that would drop if I turned on the heat. Plus, the further north we head, the colder it will get and the fewer charging stations there will be, so we can't drive as far or recharge as often. Basically, the further north I go, the more things start to work against me and the I-PACE's remaining range, but I have no idea by how much. So, we and our 300 kilometers of range on this fully charged battery started to head north. Now, this is only the second time I've ever done this drive in an electric car, and the first was in this BMW i3S on a warm summer day. If the battery ran down, it had a backup gasoline generator that could power a little more driving to get me to the nearest plug. No such thing with this Jaguar, which would have to tackle the same drive with no emergency backup on a much, much colder day. Which of course means that we're doing the exact sort of driving that you don't really use an EV for. All highway, longer distances, and in the cold. So, Presenter and electric Jaguar are a little out of their element. I decided to make my first stop at a nearby IKEA. Now, this was only 30 kilometers away from our start point, but I needed a new carpet for my office and a bite to eat, and IKEA has free electric car charging. This location even has two mighty level 3 fast chargers, so I could easily top the battery off in a few minutes while I was inside. In theory, anyways. One of the fast chargers was broken, the other was in use, meaning I'd have to wait an hour or so to use it. That was fine, we didn't need to plug in here, so I just used a slower level 2 charger that was nearby instead, but that took me about 15 minutes before I got it to work. Then I had some lunch, checked on the charging status from an app on my phone, grabbed a lovely new carpet for the office, and returned to the I-PACE with a freshly charged battery. Okay, so maybe there's a lesson to learn here, and that is to plan on some delays around using a charging station. Maybe it's broken, maybe somebody's using it, maybe you've got to call the tech support number to have somebody on the other end send a signal.
What kind of vehicle are you charging?
Jaguar I-PACE.
You light it up?
To reset that charger so it's working again. Now, none of that is a huge deal for us today since we didn't really have to stop here. I just figured that I would plug in at IKEA because, hey, we were here anyways. And now we're back to the vehicle. The battery is just about fully charged and we're good for 295 kilometers of driving, which is more than enough since our next stop is 130 kilometers away at the DC fast charge station in Port Severn. What are you beeping at me for? I'm in park, I don't need my seatbelt on. And on we went, battery full, sun shining and keeping me warmed up for now, cruise control locked into a steady 100 kph and 130 clicks to go until our next stop for juice. Now content that I'd get to the next plug with ease, I started to relax and appreciate the cabin, and how all of the glass let in plenty of sun to help keep me warm and comfy without the heat on. And the ride was nice, very soft but not sponge cake, fairly quiet. Totally a nice place to relax, even if I was starting to get just a touch chilly despite wearing many layers and my wooliest long johns. I figure the I-PACE and I are still learning a lot about each other at this point in our drive. It's studying how I drive the vehicle and where we're driving and the temperature outside. It's updating the range figure as we go. And this means that my range is fluctuating a little as the battery figures out the driving. And because I'm still not sure how cold it will get or what that will do to the situation, I'm just not taking any chances and I'm going to leave the heat off. So simply, I'm going to try to keep this battery as full as I can at all times, and that means no heat until I absolutely need it. And that's to help me keep more range than I need. In the same way as in the wintertime, ideally you're keeping your gas tank as full as you can, because what if there's a road closure, a detour, some bad weather or an accident or something. Now, in our particular case today, keeping this particular vehicle sort of topped up is going to be a little bit trickier because there are sort of only like 2 places left from here that I can plug this thing in, and it could take several hours more charging before I get home. And keep in mind that this is not like a gas vehicle where you can put in the fuel nozzle and let her rip, and then about 2 or 3 minutes later you've got hundreds of kilometers worth of driving range. In this vehicle, charging up to full is going to take at least something like an hour, and in some cases, depending on where we stop, probably even several. Now, there's no danger here, remember, and I will make it home, but it's just a matter of when, based on how much I'll need to recharge in order to have the range that I need to get there. We arrived in Port Severn to this glowing beacon of convenience for the EV driver, a functional and unoccupied DC fast charge station, level 3. We arrived with 54% battery and 157 kilometers of remaining range. A little digging in the snow and a few minutes of tackling charging station error codes, and the IPACE was chugging back electrons as fast as the battery could take them. I got a coffee, did some work on my laptop, hung out, watched the recharging on the app on my phone, and after about an hour and 15, the IPACE was almost full and estimating 294 kilometers of range. And if you're wondering, that's almost full because the rate of charging for the battery actually slows down the more full the battery gets. And the idea is that the quick charger can get you from nearly empty to nearly full, but not quite full, in quick order. It's sort of the best bang for your buck in terms of charging times on the go. So, north we went. Things looked good. 246 kilometers to home, meaning that from here I actually had 50 kilometers to spare, but it hadn't gotten cold or dark yet. Soon, it started to, and the IPACE started to do some recalculating. Slowly but steadily, that extra 50 clicks I had saved up started to shrink. It was now getting colder, but my remaining range calculation was based on not using the heat. And I was bundled up, but it was now starting to get pretty nippy. And the temperatures kept dropping. I'd have to turn on the heat, which would eat up a good portion of my now slowly shrinking 50 kilometers surplus range. And then I realized I would have to stop again after all at a slower level 2 charger at a hotel in Parry Sound. Unsurprisingly at this point, that charger took about 15 minutes to get working, and when it did, I went for a walk, and I went for supper, and I wondered how quickly the IPACE would charge on level 2. It was now even colder outside, and dark, and I came back about 90 minutes later, and I realized I needed to wait a bit longer. Well, I'm sorry if you can't see me too well right now. It's pretty much totally dark. This has been a pretty long stop, and I'm kind of tired of being cold, and I just want to get home. So this is probably going to be the last on cam for today. And I should mention too that we have to use the heat now because even before plugging in, every breath I'm taking is fogging up the windshield. So it's been almost 2 hours on this charger, I guess, and now we've got about 60 kilometers more than we need to get to my place as it sits right now. So, the home stretch. Now, the defroster ate up about 10 clicks from my emergency backup fund, making it 50 to spare. And that fluctuated as low as 43 and tended to sort of hover around 45 for the next little bit. The fluctuating makes me nervous, because what if it suddenly dropped fast? Well, thankfully the headlights and heated steering wheel didn't use up any range, and apparently you learn to just trust the range figure of your EV after a couple of drives. But me and this Jaguar hadn't even had a day together yet, so at this point I still didn't know what to expect. It got colder, and I turned the heat up a bit more. That cost me another 7 kilometers of range, and some more fluctuating, and some more nervousness. I'd get home, but not if the road was closed for bad weather, or if there was a detour. The next plug was literally the one in my driveway. So now it was just me, one electric Jaguar, and a cold drive up an empty Highway 69. This was a stressful part of the drive, and here is where I felt the most out of my element. And then things quickly settled. With 100 clicks to go, my emergency range stopped fluctuating, and that made me much more confident and relaxed. I even turned the heat up a few more notches when I realized I was going to be just fine. And I arrived home shortly after, with 12% battery and 24 kilometers of driving still possible, and that's after cranking the heat up for the last 20 minutes of the drive. Now, I'd never let a gas tank get that empty in the winter, but thankfully, my freshly installed level 2 home charger anxiously waited to start filling its first battery. And that was it. Maiden electric car voyage home. Done. And I'd be much better at this the next time because now I know what to expect from the infrastructure and especially from the vehicle. I'll trust this machine more now in the cold, even though I'm sure I wouldn't have made it home comfortably without that last stop. And despite a largely chilly drive and arriving some hours later than usual and having a few tense moments, we did it all in far less than ideal conditions and without using a drop of gas. By and large, I never actually had that much to worry about, but I figure this first drive is a learning experience that will benefit me and any other first-time EV driver for years to come. So driving and living with an EV like the I-PACE may not yet be perfect for everyone in every situation, in every locale, but man oh man, did my time with that machine ever get me excited to see where this electric vehicle technology is going to go in the coming years as more automakers like Jaguar join the game. So head down to the description below and look for links to the full video review and more information on the new I-PACE if you're interested, and thanks for coming along for the ride. Hopefully we can do it again soon. I'm Justin Pritchard for Autotrader.ca, and until next time, take care and drive safe.